What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Aber. I hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. We coming off a pretty good night in baseball. We both had some pretty good action going on, and had finished second in the ball four or the four max 250 or whatever, which was nice. Nice to get back on the winning track. And Sheets got an unlucky home run, which also boosted me. So I don't know how to feel about it exactly. That knocked him out of fourth. He was really deep. He had a huge lineup in the big one. Sheets, why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll transition to tonight.
Well, I would like to say, by the way, that I appreciate everybody asking about when the site's going to be put out and stuff like that, and what we're going to include and all this stuff. I mean, one thing that certainly is going to be we're going to have to pay for, like really soon, is the live stuff, like leading up until the end, and the Discord. Because I'm telling you, that's where like so much of the freaking value is coming from. First of all, it's the one that affects our ROI the most. In other words, like when we're spending our effort in like the last hour, you know what I mean, like delivering information, instead of focusing on our stuff. So it negatively impacts us. But yet, on the other hand, also, I mean, like I should go back at like the stuff that we've like just released, like just during those last live streams. Not to mention, like basketball, I literally gave out the actual lineup that got second in the Monster last night. Okay, right. I literally announced that it was winning.
Wait, you finished second in the Monster? You didn't tell me you finished second in the Monster.
Well, I got second behind a four-way tie for first.
Oh shoot! But still,
so annoying. And I was unique. I was by myself behind a freaking four-way tie for first, right? But it was the lineup where I just announced it. So that's one thing. The second thing is that when we went through our baseball stuff, I just said, listen, this is what I'm doing. And I said, you guys aren't going to like it, but this is what my opinion is my two value stacks are going to be Tampa and Detroit, as gross as that is. And both of them basically smashed. You know what I mean? Tampa didn't like, it's Tampa, you had to get the right one off to get in there, but Detroit was freaking rolling, man. Like Detroit had me in literally first place in like the lottery for like a decent amount of time. But what's very difficult, by the way, about baseball, and this is like kind of stupid to say, right? It's hard to win that thing, all right? And this is one of the reasons why. Same with basketball, same with football, same with everything, is when you are competing with 150 maxers that know what they're doing, it's really tough to win. And this is why it takes to have like a sweat to really embrace this idea. So I had this just literally I had like two Detroit stacks. I played like 20 lineups in the thing, right? And I had I had 15 lineups in this. And I was in first. And then I'm like, okay, I have this one guy behind me that I just needed to hold off. That's what I was looking at, right? I have one guy behind me. And then somebody else hit up something. And then this guy's like second lineup came into the picture. And then I'm like, okay, so now if like Goodrum gets a hit, I don't have him, but this guy's fourth lineup gets there, right? And then if Goodrum does get a hit, this lineup gets there. And when you get surrounded by like a whole bunch of combinations that you got to fade, like from the same game, you start almost having to root against yourself. It's like so frustrating. I'm like, okay, I have a guy that I need to beat this lineup up, but if he gets a hit, then it knocks in a guy on second who a guy behind me has, along with the guy that I'm with. And I'm just dead, So it's really difficult to win these things without, especially when you have these stacks that are so correlated with one another that people are going to be like putting in different types of combinations. Not to say you can't win, but man, it is rough. Especially in baseball. Basketball, it's not exactly as correlated as basketball is not exactly as correlated as baseball, so it's not exactly the same. But baseball, when someone makes the decision, I'm going to play Tiger stacks, and they're going to play like 20% of it, and they have 150 max, and they have 30 Tiger stacks, they have like pretty much every Tiger combination, right? And so unless you have the exact, even though I had a 5-man Tiger stack, like this particular one may not have had Goodrum. This particular, and I'm sitting here, I'm watching Goodrum get like a garbage time, like stolen base. I'm like, okay, now I'm dead for first, and so in baseball, it is tough, man. I'm not saying you can't win that way, but playing that tournament, it's especially difficult, I think.
And in the long shot ones, it's weird though. It's an unusual one because I found a little bit of things somewhat the other way. If you get like extreme contrarian enough, you
Right.
can actually, with limited lineups. I mean, I've won that with one lineup before.
You won that thing before? The
Million
lineup?
person
Yeah.
one. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did it while I was driving across Golden Gate Bridge, and I threw a lineup. I shouldn't have been.
Oh shit.
Should have been driving and DFSing, but it was I was like shocked later. I didn't even, because you don't really take those that seriously. It's hard.
Right.
It should be looked at as almost like not throwaway money, but like those are like just gamble it up. Like, I mean, go crazy with it.
Yeah.
And anyway,
but the other thing I remember, like one of the first conversations we had, I mean, like Osmo, who's, if not the best, one of the best at this particular form of DFS, like the 150 maxing. Yep. I remember you told me that even he would say to you, listen, sometimes it's like there's a big difference, even like a 5%er and like a 2%er. I mean, you really want to get like a 2%er and something like that to really make this shit work.
That's right. And you don't, it sounds like, oh, well, these guys are low owned or whatever, but believe me, there's a difference between Brad Miller, who was 0.6% owned yesterday, and Andrew McCutcheon, who's 4.9% owned. That's a massive.
That's a huge difference.
But in a small field, to take the other
the small field, I mean, like it's like my lineup, that particular lineup would have won everything. It
would have won my tournament by 20 points.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you know what I mean? It's just weird. And exactly. I'm not gonna vent and complain or anything. I was a little frustrated that my player got pulled with he got a hit. He got hit in the hand. Roman Quinn was my fifth of my Phillies.
I saw that.
He got hit in the hand, and then he got a hit on his next at bat. And for some reason, they pulled him out of the game anyway before his next at bat.
And meanwhile, you see who got there last night. He hit a home run. My Galaxy Brain 7-inning play. Muncy hit a home run.
I know, but you couldn't do. You honestly you couldn't. I actually tried to look at how you could have formatted things. I don't think you could have won it. But it was pretty funny that I should have known that once you said that would have happened. All right, well, let's get into today's.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Why don't we pull it up?
Oh, I'll pull up my screen. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll do baseball.
But I wasn't really betting about it. I was very happy with the results. Very happy. It was just kind of an observation as I was sweating it about how difficult it is in those type of, like basketball. Like I could be in first and I could like see what's behind me, and I could see like there's only like okay, I just need Lillard to fail. You know what I mean? Or I need like this guy to fail. But baseball, it's like you got like all these, you got to like bob and weave, and you got like different types of stacks coming up the list. And you know how events work in baseball. You can't make up, in basketball, you can't give up 14 points in the blink of an eye, where baseball you can.
Right. No, that's totally true. All right. Well, let's jump on into it. We're gonna go game by game here. Okay, so first game off is Milwaukee Philly. Is that right? What you got here?
First game off.
Yeah, Milwaukee. I'm gonna keep simultaneously checking the weather as I'm going here because I know there's a couple games that are a little bit iffy. This is not one of them. So Peralta, Anderson, you have a pretty low run total here. The wind is blowing in a little bit. I don't think I'm going to go back to the Phillies much tonight. I do think that Brad Miller is still really cheap and hitting in the middle of the order. I don't hate the idea of potentially using Peralta, but I don't love the price. I'm just sort of like iffy. I'm sort of meh on this game. The one thing I would say is that I don't mind taking some bats against Chase Anderson. That's the one thing, whether it be Shaw, Vogelbach, Wong, well, maybe not Wong, Kane, Garcia, all of those guys are reasonable. Even Bradley, very reasonably priced. Probably not wouldn't stack it up, but I think taking a couple of these guys is not the worst idea. Again, wind blowing in from left, so maybe you prefer the lefties a little bit over the righties because at least they don't have to face it hitting in power into the wind. And Anderson is generally reverse splitsy, so he usually is worse against righties. But mostly this game, I don't have a ton of interest.
Yeah, so I did have some interest in Peralta, and in fairness, it's not my top play by any stretch, but definitely in my second tier. Like I have one top pitcher, two kind of like really good decent spend ups. And then I have like a group of three other guys, and Peralta is actually one of the other guys. He's actually a spend up within the other guys. So I do like him. I do like him somewhat. I do like Milwaukee as a value stack here quite a bit actually. Them along with we'll get to in Tampa also, but I do like them kind of a decent amount. So that's I don't know what the weather's gonna be like or anything like that. I gotta look at that, but they're one of my favorites teams to go after from a value perspective, especially considering I want to pay it for pitching.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. The only thing I would say about stacking it is just sort of what I was sort of echoing. And that doesn't mean guys can't hit home runs or get there. But when you have 12 miles an hour blowing in from left field, it doesn't feel ideal on an already low run total game. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? That's the only thing that I would caution against is maybe something like that. But I agree. I think as a mini, like getting a couple bats from there is definitely something I'll probably be interested in doing later on.
One more last thing about last night. Like one of my real opportunities to really get some distance in like the 8th inning, was the 9th inning. I forget which inning it was. I think it was the 8th inning. The only guy I had that like nobody had in the Tiger stacks was I had Miggy Cabrera, and he was up with the bases loaded, 1 out. And
oh, right.
And I just knew it. And they're like he's 0 for 5. He's 0 for his last 22. And the last at bat he had like a great at bat. He fouled it off like 100 times before getting called down strikes. And they're like, well, we could really use here as a 4-6-3 double play, and there it came. Hey, anyway, Atlanta, Washington. You want to get onto that one?
You started off because I'm having trouble uploading my projections, and I'm having a lot of trouble trying to figure out why Fried is not more loved on this slate.
Because they don't know about the pitch count. As a matter of fact, what's his name?
That's my concern as well.
Yeah, what's his name? Put that in the Discord, actually. Like even Cardi was trying to like upload his projection. He was like confused. He was like, I've heard nothing about pitch counts. Does anybody have information for me? I mean, really, like he was lost too. So I don't think it's going to matter for me, if you want to know the truth. Mm-hmm. I can't see a world where, well, I shouldn't say that. I was about to say I can't see a world I put Max Fried, but he's 6,300.
63, I know.
I mean, he had a live batting practice session with no issues first start. We'll watch the board. We'll watch Twitter. We'll see.
I did happen to watch the entire Braves game, like mostly, before I was going to meet a friend yesterday. But it was they were talking very optimistically about Fried, thinking that he'd be ready to be like a full go. But it was just announcer speak from announcers that I completely don't understand. So I don't really have any idea what to do with that. If he's like, if we get word that he can throw up to 90 pitches, I definitely have some interest here.
Well, what it's not going to affect is our love for us, presumed for Atlanta, right? From the hitting perspective.
Yeah. The Fetty thing is something we want to get on in general, but the problem is, again, with this game, and I don't want to be overly, but again, I do think it matters, the weather. You get it blowing in like almost 15 miles an hour from left field. Not ideal. So I have Atlanta, like they were initially what I wanted to do, but that's a big sort of deterrent for me.
I like it. I like Atlanta a lot more on FanDuel than I do on
everyone will, yeah.
On DraftKings. And Atlanta for me on DraftKings is, I mean, again, I have Tampa, Milwaukee as my top 2, and then under that, I really just have Atlanta as another team. I have like 5 different teams in that second tier. Mm-hmm. And when I say tier, I don't mean like just like points score, because obviously Atlanta's going to rate the score more points than Tampa and Milwaukee. I'm just talking about in terms of value adjusted. So Atlanta's not like a priority for me on DraftKings. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So if there's wind associated with it, and I don't get that much of it, it really won't bother me too much. But we do need to do a little research on the Fried thing, because although he's not gonna probably put up 30 fantasy points, he certainly, well, I shouldn't say, I mean, he was a good real life pitcher for a good amount of last year, but he's been a struggler for a while. Yeah. So who knows what happens coming off the injured list. I mean, if he ends up, if there's too much announcer speak and he ends up chalk, I kind of want to play Washington.
Well, one thing about Fried is he gives up absolutely no hard contact.
When he's right.
No, when he's ever. I mean, like he's been like the least home run per inning pitched, or one of the lowest of any baseball for the last few years. I know he gave up 2 home runs in one game and one in another game this season, including this Washington team. Clearly wasn't healthy coming back. I mean, look, it's fine. I actually look at this Washington lineup, and like I felt yesterday, I did play some Manoah, by the way, because this Washington team this is an awful lineup. If you get Soto back in the lineup today, which I think is possible, then it'll literally just completely change my opinion about the entire lineup. Like Starlin Castro batting fourth is never a good sign. Josh Harrison is a guy who's a borderline player at this point, although he's been playing well, and he's batting second. Ryan Zimmerman is a platoon player who's past his prime, batting third. This is a lineup that is god awful. But if you throw one guy into it, you can sort of start to justify guys and where they're hitting, and you've got Bell off the bench, things like that. I mean, so it really is a little bit dependent on, I don't know. It's not a team I'm going to stack. It's a team I'm in general going to be looking to try and attack with pitchers whenever Soto's out. But I do think Soto will be back soon, potentially even tonight. Anyway, that's a lot of talk for this game, but I do think that I want to take a look deeper at the weather later and see how it's affecting potential home run power. I didn't want to give it away yesterday, but Atlanta was like 20 some odd percent better than usual. Philly was like almost 30% better than usual for power. And some of the other games were, almost every other game was like 20 to 30% worse for power than games that were similar in the past. So I want to take a look at that. But if that looks even average or even below average slightly, I would make Atlanta one of my priority stacks.
By the way, a couple of comments on what you just said. Not to spend too much time on this game, but you did say something I want to comment on. But before I do that, of all the names that you just mentioned, describing like what happened yesterday in this game, you know who had the best performance hitting of all of them, and that would be
Noah.
That's right.
But this guy is a monster. He's always been able to hit like through other leagues. And I think he's had like 10 at bats in the major leagues going into that at bat. He was like, I think he was like 3 for 10 with 2 doubles and a home run and 6 strikeouts or something. And he was bunting earlier in the game. And I'm just like, just let this guy swing the bat. Let's see what happens. And sure enough, with the bases loaded, you got no other choice.
We're gonna talk about this offline, by the way, this next comment, but your comment is, I didn't want to talk about the extreme weather conditions or whatever it is. I could care less where I get my information from. You know what I mean? Because nothing is completely original. And if we're gonna, you know what I mean? And I have no problem just combining all the different data and information I get from all my different sources, because my opinion is based on a combination of all of it. Right. So I would have no problem with you of having said, by the way, the weather conditions are extremely strong last night.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm not going to come out and say, by the way, Roth and his premium and the premium content for Roto Grinders, which I pay for, but you don't. This is what he says. I mean, I'm not going to go down that road, right?
No. But I feel okay saying that a day after the fact about what I was leaning towards yesterday, because I was saying yesterday about whether things being slanted, but I didn't want to give away any numbers or what Roth had exactly. I just was saying it looks like good hitting weather, and I wasn't just using him. I was looking at another tool that I have had for a long time. Right. Anyway, we can move on to Boston and Detroit if you'd like.
I'd rather move on to Houston, New York, since that's next on my list.
Never mind. I actually have it backwards. Okay, go ahead. Let's do that.
I don't like either pitcher in this game. And with respect to the hitting, I had the Yankees as a secondary stack on FanDuel, and I didn't get to them at all on DraftKings. What do you like here?
Sort of like both sides.
Okay.
This is my first game that I kind of, I guess, want to stack a little bit. We have a little bit of rain, but it looks like it's going to be clear, so I'm not worried about that too much. But just keep an eye on it. We talked about the St. Louis thing, and then shortly before, it started looking worse and worse right before lock, and I mentioned it on our show, and I just, we stayed away from it, thank goodness. People are going to postpone games for weird reasons. Some teams don't. Anyway, this is not one I'm too terribly worried about, even though the weather doesn't look good at the moment. This looks like a great hitting environment. I don't think Garcia and Montgomery are necessarily the worst, especially with good bullpens behind them. But these are powerful lineups that I would argue are extremely underpriced. And I really, really want to get pieces. I think that my favorite guys would be nothing special. Stanton, Judge, for for the Yankees would be my top two. I love I like the stack. And then my top two for Houston will be Bregman and Alvarez. And possibly Kyle Tucker Kyle Tucker too, even batting later in the order. Tucker is probably more of a priority guy just because of that price and playing in Yankee Stadium. Wind's blowing out. I'm very into this game. I just don't know. We'll figure it out at the end, but I don't know where it's going to land on my stacks. But I like both of them. I lean a little bit more Yankees always because of the power throughout the entire lineup. But the truth is, 1 through 7, it's a pretty solid Houston order as well. So I'm interested in both sides of this.
I have a question for you, and I guess this is a Chris F question. Maybe he doesn't even know the answer to this. When DraftKings makes its salaries, or FanDuel for that matter, when they make their salaries, do they have like in mind that to make it sort of enticing to play a certain guy that people might want to play to increase volume, to increase whatever? Or is it really just straight algorithm based on, based on StatCast and BVP and whatever it is? Because like I'm just like staring at this, and this is like me being just kind of like stupid. But like if you gave me like heads up, points versus points, like Giancarlo Stanton at 4,700 or Gleyber Torres at 4,800. I mean, it's like a 5-year-old will tell you that's just not accurate, right?
Right.
Or even Stanton and Sanchez, or whatever it is.
Well, so let me make a point. What they're doing is they're effing with us a little bit. We don't get an extra outfield spot. There's no utility over here. So what everybody did yesterday was pretty clear. They paid up on the infield because there were so many good value options in the outfield. So that's going to be the same case all the time. So that 4,700 for Stanton should be looked at as like, okay, well, if he was a shortstop, he could be 5,800. You know what I mean?
Do you think they do that on purpose? I mean, like.
No, I think that they have an algorithm that they use pretty strictly. But in general, you're always going to get great outfielders at reasonable prices on big plates that aren't owned, just because of the way that you can't play enough of them. It's just not possible.
Gotcha.
Okay, about this game too, I'm not seeing crazy ownership on the Yankee side, and that sort of has me excited. I know it's early, and I know ownerships are gonna be messed up, but I would get completely behind a Yankee stack, especially if they're gonna be for any reason low owned. They might go up to number 1 for me.
Yeah, I have them fair. I mean, I'll give it another look.
Yeah, I just think that it's kind of interesting. Anyway, so we can move on to the next one.
Next game's probably not going to play, right?
I mean, so I'm looking at it right now. Let me see. I'll get my little update.
Fortunately, I don't want to play anything anyway. But I mean,
you mean the Red Sox game?
Yeah, I don't think I had much of an interest in it. Actually, on FanDuel, I like Boston. And on DK, yeah, I did like Boston as a secondary on as well. I guess so.
Yeah, it was interesting last night because Boston put up a ton of runs, and it was kind of cold, and the hitting conditions weren't as good as they normally would be for Boston, but it's still Boston. And then later, as the weather things got a little bit better and it wasn't blowing in a little bit, there was a few home runs hit, but early in the day, it wasn't happening. It's pretty ugly out there. But if we're going to play it, I think that especially if the weather stays similar, which I'm guessing it doesn't tend to change drastically in Boston like it does in Atlanta, for example. I think that we should just be looking at anytime Detroit's playing anybody, stacking the other team. I mean, really, because they don't have a starter that isn't combustible. They don't have a bullpen that I believe, even though they've been okay. You've got it's 49 degrees. That's what your negative on this game is. Otherwise, it's very hard not to convince me that the Red Sox will be completely reasonable. And to be honest with you, on the other side of the game, I don't mind guys like Scope especially stand out. Ramos, even though he's been struggling. Grossman's actually better from the right side, although it takes away a stolen base upside, which
he killed it last night, by the way.
Yeah, and it started off with that stolen base in the first, and then he hit that home run. Not a guy you should be counting on to hit home runs. I'll tell you that right now. You'll get that about 6 or 8 times a year, probably. But I like the Boston lineup, and I like a little bit of to be honest, I actually like Martin Perez if the weather was all good too. I know I mentioned a couple names I like from Detroit, but I do think if you are looking to spend way down at pitcher for any reason, Perez is a completely viable option.
Okay.
But again, this game may not play, so we can move on.
So Bueller for me is one of those second best plays as far as I'm concerned. I like him in this spot. This got rained out the other day, right? The same game, or was it yesterday even?
No, they played yesterday.
No, Bueller was supposed to play at Chicago recently.
I mean, it was Kershaw and I don't know what
Yeah, he missed something. I'm telling you, Bueller hasn't pitched in like 7 days. I'm telling you, there was some game.
Well, yeah, because the Dodgers didn't play, and then they when that happens, teams tend to shift their rotations a little bit. But it's true he hasn't pitched in 7 days. But that's one day more than usual.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure that Bueller, we were talking about Bueller at Chicago, and then like that game got postponed.
No, we never. I mean, we only had 2 games in Chicago. That was supposed to be. It was supposed to be. Could it have been Bueller?
I don't know. I think I might got you on this one, Mr. Dodger guy. I think I might.
Yeah, you may have, because they may have just. Yeah, you're right. They may have shifted the rotation back to the top, which is kind of weird because it's not like Bueller's a significantly worse pitcher than.
There it is. Bueller was expected to start Monday's season opener before the contest was postponed. There it is.
Monday's season opener. Oh, in Chicago. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm now 1-30 against Bobby in Dodger knowledge. That's it. I'm up to 0.02% accuracy.
I can't remember. We got golf. We got basketball. We got my.
That's right. That's right.
It's hard to keep track of this stuff.
That's right. That's right. But in any case, I like Bueller. And you got to tell me about the win situation, I guess, because why am I not getting Dodgers? And maybe I should.
That's a big part of why.
Okay.
It's blowing in from left, which is a little bit weird. Left center.
Okay.
It's only blowing in at 8 miles an hour. It is only 50 degrees there, though. I would keep a close eye on this one because the Dodgers would shoot. I actually like Alzolay as a pitcher. I've mentioned this a number of times, but I mean, these are tough matchups, and he's not the kind of guy the Dodgers are going to have a tough time with. Now, they've struggled in general with everybody, so maybe I shouldn't be saying that at the moment. It's going to happen for every team. I would be completely fine loading up on Dodgers, and honestly, like you don't have the same exact values because they've gotten a little healthier, which means the lineup should actually be better. But they're really expensive, and it's hard to get them in with the top pitchers, including Bueller. And I absolutely agree that Bueller, especially given the weather stuff. The one other thing I want to mention about the weather is that it can be a little tricky sometimes when, like, if the wind is like 15 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, sort of blowing side to side and kind of while it might keep the run totals might stay low. If you look at the history of what happens there, and you've mentioned this earlier in the season, Sheets, it's not that the runs are always suppressed. It's more that the power is suppressed a lot of the time, depending on which way the wind angle is coming from, sort of there. And there tends to be more singles and more walks. And the players in Chicago seem to be a lot more patient than usual when they're playing in these types of situations. And they did a great job, in getting pitch counts up on Bauer yesterday. Obviously got to Kershaw because a couple bad infield plays, and then also just things just sort of the wheels kind of came off. Shortest start of Kershaw's career yesterday. So Bueller, yes, high on my list. But when we get into him versus the absolute top, it's going to be an interesting conversation, and I think he belongs in it. I just don't know. It's going to be interesting to decide, between he and Bieber and Darvish, and even to some extent Peralta. But I think that you're better off with the other guys. But yeah, and if you are playing the Dodgers, just again, I would. It is blowing in from right field right now, but still, I would still play the lefties. That would be my favorite way to go. And I will mention just that AJ Pollock is, by the end of the year, in my opinion, going to be one of the best 7 hitters in baseball. He's coming around after a really slow start. I mean, you just look at his game log or whatever. You've had him in the teens. 6 out of the last 9 games. He had 45 in one game against Milwaukee. I just still believe in Pollock's power. I think he hits 30 plus home runs this year, and he's a 7 hitter. There's not many 7 hitters in the league who can do that. So the lefties with him are sort of my initial thoughts, because you do need to get a little bit of value if you want to play any good pitcher.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Okay, so how about the Mets and Cardinals? So
I don't have them here.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I'm doing? I'm using my wrong page here. I'll go back to
That game's postponed.
Yeah, that's my bad. I've got an old lineup sheet that I've got up.
Or something. That's something going on with it.
I'm trying to juggle. This is what happens when I don't have my second screen. I have to juggle between all of these, all of this other stuff. And it's like got basketball, it's got golf. I'm just trying to keep it all under control here. So wait, the next one you had was Texas, Minnesota, right?
Yeah. I want to do a little homework on this Lewis Thorpe thing, just because he's 4K.
Your favorite in the world, a 4K pitcher, Sheets can't resist himself.
I just want to see, get a little manager speak. If they tell me they want him to go 5 innings, I'm going to take a shot. If they say we're doing a projected opener situation or whatever, then I'm not going to take a shot.
Yeah.
I think in either case, I'm going to play Texas. Well, I mean,
that was not what I was expecting you to say.
What's that?
That was not what I was expecting you to say. Go ahead. I love it.
Yeah. In either case, I'm going to play Texas. They're up there for me. And then the guys that you'd expect. I mean, the guys that can smack the ball. Like you got Gallo, Nate Lowe. Then there's Calhoun, Garcia, Solak. I got no problem with that. Or Culbertson. He had something good yesterday. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I didn't quite get to the Minnesotas. Maybe I should. My first look, I didn't quite get to them. They're all like 6K or something like that.
Well, we have the greatest hitter in baseball history on Minnesota. And
Buxton's back?
What's funny? No, not only back, he's back hitting home runs. You know.
Oh my God, he's cheap. He's cheap. He's only 5,700 now.
Hit another bomb last night, stole a base the night before after literally smoking the ball right at people twice at 110 miles an hour. Hitting the ball harder than anybody in baseball, hitting the ball better than anybody in baseball, stolen base upside, everything you want. Cheap? You say he's cheap? He's 5,700. Naturally, people are going to want to play guys like Buxton, Cruz in these situations because it looks like a lefty, but really you're getting Thorpe in after the first inning probably, which is kind of weird to start to use a starter as a lefty against a team that at the top of their lineup is literally, you can say there aren't lefty mashers, and then just go ahead and look at the career ISO for Josh Donaldson, Nelson Cruz, Byron Buxton against lefties versus righties. It's hilarious. They're monsters against lefties. So those guys are obviously my favorites, but again, we're getting into spending up, and I like that it's getting hard again. Yesterday was partly good for me because it was hard to try to pay up for pitching and get the Braves in, which I know it didn't even work for my main lineup, but I wanted to play Acuna, which did work because he had a home run. But even if you wanted to play the Philly guys, they're just, Real Muto, all those guys. I wanted to play bats that were expensive, and I do again today, which is going to make it tricky because I really like the pitching. So we'll get into sort of a sum up at the very end here. But I do think that if I'm, no matter what, I'm going to have some Buxton, Cruz, Donaldson situation. Maybe it'll be more on FanDuel where they're a little more reasonable.
Gallo's 3,100 against this clown.
I love Gallo. Gallo and Garcia. But so, okay. So
Calhoun is 2,700 against.
I buried my main thing. Pineda's, to me, one of the best pitching options on the slate. I know you're a big fan of all of this stuff. Everybody likes to look at advanced stats. I'll look at real numbers.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Pineda assuming Pineda does in fact start. That's who I have as my starter. Who do you have?
For Minnesota?
Yeah.
Oh, I had Lewis Thorpe.
Oh my God, Thorpe on the other side. I don't know what's going on here. I've got Thorpe and Minnesota. This is weird. I think my thing is just mixed up here. For some reason I had Thorpe on Texas, which is weird.
No. No, that's what I was saying.
What are we doing?
Texas stinks against lefties, so I just figured maybe they would give a shot. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's just figure out this before we get going because it's. I mean, there's no way they're using an opener or something for Pineda, but he pitched. I mean, it was long enough ago that he could pitch again, and he hasn't thrown less than 4 1/3 innings, and he's thrown over 5 in all but one of his starts. And he's put up 19 or more fantasy points in 4 out of his 5 starts. So if Pineda was starting, I would like Pineda very much.
That sounds fair.
But if he's not, I already like Texas even against him a little bit because he can be reverse splitsy and he gives up power. So I was sort of with maybe this Texas thing. This might be the time to get together with Texas. They're just so cheap. I actually think Adolis Garcia and Solak really stand out as the main ones, but Gallo, absolutely. Give me the lefty. Give me Nate Lowe. Every time I'm playing Texas, I promise you, I don't know if I can bring myself, unless I'm making a million lineups, to not play Nate Lowe in my Texas stacks. Willie Calhoun's 2,700. This is your cheap stack. I'm with you, Sheets. Let's, as you would say, get some Texas, if it's Thorpe, and rock the house, assuming that we don't have too much weather. It is 49 degrees there. So you can say, and look, this is going to happen a lot earlier in the season with baseball. I'm going to get annoying and talk a lot about weather because it really matters that much. We're talking about fractional differences and then things that are 25% to 35% worse for hitters. That's not a fractional difference. That's a major difference. That's Mike Trout versus a guy who can't make the major leagues. So this is a, it's just got a little bit of rain, and I'll do some more research before our 6 p.m. show on the exact, the amount that it should affect the hitting. But for right now, I think that it's good to go on both sides for me. I had the pitch. I keep having that happen with the pitching. So Yang, they actually are going to throw out there for a full, because he actually is an actual kind of starter. Like he'll pitch 4 to 5 innings. Boy, oh boy. This is another game that I feel like you want to get pieces of. I told you my preferences. The problem is they're all really, really expensive. If you could get a cheap guy in there, maybe you could throw in Kyle Garlick, who should have a decent hitting spot. Probably won't be around very long unless they go on a big explosion. But even down to Kirilloff, who I just like to keep playing this guy, even in a lefty-lefty, I would consider him as a cheap option to try and balance out the stack. And I wish Astudillo was a little bit cheaper because he's probably one of my favorite guys to watch hit a baseball. It's like watching Bartolo Colon hit, and except for this guy always makes contact. He literally doesn't strike out. So, yeah, so I'm interested in both sides of that game.
I mean, you guys want to know who's going to be chalk, though. I mean, just look at what you do if you could play. If you wanted to play Darvish and Bieber, if you stack these Texas guys like with ease. I mean, these guys are going to be really popular.
Texas?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You got a Minnesota 4K pitcher, and then like all these guys are like under 4K. Like the whole team is under 4K.
I don't see people playing Texas. I'm just telling you the truth. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see it happening. I think that they will maybe more than they're. Well, right now, first of all, I think people might have had them projected for Pineda, so I don't think they're probably showing up for most people as much. But look, Texas, we almost need to treat them a little bit like San Francisco when they get out of San Francisco, in my opinion. Like you get out of that non-hitters park, and you get to go to Minnesota, which has actually become a very decent hitters park. It's a little cold, but I'm into Texas here. I think that I'm into that whole game. And there is, people say game stacking is a thing. I'll tell you why it is in baseball, because weather is a thing. If weather wasn't a thing, sure, maybe it's not a thing, but weather is a thing. So anyway, we can keep moving.
Darvish and Bieber. Well, okay, so let's start with Darvish. So Darvish is one of the top options. I think it's going to be the same conversation we usually have, you and me, nowadays with these Kansas City games, because what I was about to say is I think Darvish is probably a better play than Bieber. Then you're going to tell me that Kansas City, the wind's blowing in 20 miles an hour and it's 40 degrees again, which I keep forgetting. And so probably Bieber is probably just as good. Right now I have Darvish is better, but it's kind of silly to say anybody's better than Bieber, honestly.
No, but it is getting kind of like crazy how good Darvish is. Like, I mean, yeah, I almost feel like he's like, is he the most underrated? He might be the most. He's the one guy I never hear talked about amongst the top pitchers in baseball, like never. And if you look at the results, I mean, not to mention the fact that he's dominated the Dodgers twice this year. Like he's not like facing nobodies, you know what I mean? He's been absolutely lights out. The matchup's great. He's faced this team once before. I think he gave up a couple of hits in some innings. He can get annoying at sometimes the pitch to pay up for, because occasionally he'll have like a 25, 30 pitch inning where he doesn't even give up a run, but it lasts forever. But against Pittsburgh, certainly hard to not have some interest in Darvish here. I definitely think actually he might be more popular than Bieber. I don't know. We'll see.
I've had them very similar. I have all three of those guys very similar right now, between Bueller, Bieber, and Darvish. I just think of Bieber, like I just feel as though like all the Kansas City guys I'm worried about are right-handers. So like it's I don't know. And tell me about Pittsburgh, because I remember, like, I forget it was last year or the year before, that Pittsburgh, while they weren't like a particularly strong hitting team, they were a team that kind of were pesky and didn't strike out that much. Is that still the case, or or they still have, or do they strike out a little bit more?
I haven't looked at their K rate from the season. Historically, they have a reasonable number of strikeouts in their lineup between Reynolds, Moran, Stallings, Gonzalez, but a lot of these guys fit the mold of a team you don't want to stack in general because they just sort of slap the ball around, like Frazier,
right?
Newman, guys like that. But so just in terms of run totals, this will stand out as a game because you don't usually see a team with less than 2.5 run total in a full length game. So I do think that from that perspective, Darvish seems like a clear standout. Something feels very, very wrong in DFS with paying a similar price for Darvish over Bieber without getting an ownership discount.
Yep.
That's pretty much where I am.
I don't like any of the hitting from that game. Do you?
It's interesting because if this game was played a week ago or 2 weeks ago when they were in the middle of their hot stretch, I think you would be looking at an incredibly chalky San Diego stack. Or not chalky, but a very popular, very talked about amongst touts. And I don't see any way people are playing them today. So just based on that alone, San Diego is always going to be a team when no one's playing them. They're like the Yankees a little bit that I'm going to have some interest in. So where will I end up? I'm not sure. I think they'll be popular on FanDuel. I just don't think they will be on DraftKings because the pricing is tough. And if you're prioritizing the guys you want to play, like obviously Tatis is always going to be number one. I mentioned it about Acuna, and I want to mention one more. Oh, I should have mentioned this about Atlanta with Acuna. So I know he had a home run last night, and he looks great, and he smoked another ball that was going to be a triple at least, maybe an inside the Parker, and it was a great catch that actually really pissed me off early on because in my 1,500, it could have been in business. Pache, or there's a lot of stuff going on. But he can't. Since his hip injury, he hasn't tried to steal, and that's his thing. That's one of the big advantages of playing the Acuna. So it sort of is. And I mentioned that only because he and Tatis are very similar in that realm, but Tatis is going to happily go when he gets a chance. It's like one of those guys who, they don't want to pitch to him, but when they pitch around him, you're giving him second base most of the time. So I really do think that even if you're not one-offs from this game, Tatis, Machado, Grisham all stand out as being excellent plays for me. And I love that they're not going to be owned. They're it's a reasonable spot. I'm just looking at the weather in San Diego. I'm so annoying with the weather early in the season.
So he pinch hit last night. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I pinch hit last night.
Okay. I can see why he didn't want to play. I mean, he still was reeling off of that game against Cy Young winner Tyler Anderson. I couldn't imagine him wanting to even pick up the bat after that.
Yeah.
So I guess it was a perfect time to have a day off for him. All right, want to move on to this Cleveland-Kansas City game?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I like more than Perez. I like Brady Singer more than Martin Perez as a cheap guy. Just putting it out there. I think Brady Singer is totally in play at 5,500, and especially if we get what's been kind of standard Kansas City weather recently, like you're saying. I think that certainly helps. So I definitely think that Brady Singer is in play. If you don't want to double pay up for pitching, which you want to pay up for hitting, sometimes that's what you got to do. I actually do like that. Bieber, we've talked about him like maybe enough, but he's one of the top three options between Darvish, Bieber, and Buehler. You can't go wrong playing him. I can make a case for the other two had better games. I mean, you think you have to probably, you certainly have to consider him. I don't think he's a lock. I don't think he's a fade. I think he's someone would be a very large part of a very short pitcher pool, and that's kind of where I'm at. I don't really like any of the hitting from this game, and there you have it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bieber, obviously. I'm just going to do a quick BVP search because I think it's probably worth it. And I know I could do some of this stuff before, and I do a lot of it, but there's a lot of things that come up, and I like to just sort of share the information, what I'm looking up with you. Not that it matters so much, but Bieber playing in the same division obviously has a ton of experience with these guys. And what I'm looking for is more the K rates, the walk rate, and which is going to be good because he's awesome against everybody. But I also want to know if they're stealing off of them. Which can create some problems. So
while you look that up, I'm going to comment that on FanDuel, I think Peralta's more in the mix as the top. I think all four of them are to me equally playable between Darvish, Buehler, Peralta, and Bieber, because the other three got are priced up much more on FanDuel.
Yeah.
Where Peralta's pretty much the same price. So I think that all four of them are pretty bunched over there.
I would say that I would only play Peralta if he's going to be significantly lower on than the others. When we even just say the names out loud, it feels kind of wrong to me.
I think you could say the price tags out loud too. I mean,
no, but no, I understand the price, but it's not enough of a price savings. It really isn't. It should be.
Well, he's 3,000 less than Bieber. I mean,
no, but that's on on FanDuel. It's not like you need to have like a top 5 pitching performance on FanDuel pretty much.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And not that he won't, but like one of these guys probably outshines the others by like 20 points tonight. And I just don't think he's the most likely to do that. Now it's possible, sure. But Philly is like they're still a pesky offense. You know what I mean? It's not like he's facing a nobody team. I would rather, he's got the harder matchup.
Again, to talk this through, I mean, if you want to play Atlanta, like for example,
yeah.
I mean, it's hard to play Bieber where it's not hard to play Peralta.
Just because that 900, I can't believe it matters that much more.
FanDuel, I'm talking about.
Oh, on FanDuel, I'm sorry.
It's 3,000.
Yeah, I'll find the value in hitters later.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Other guys are going to hit, you know what I mean?
I'll play Atlanta, I'll play Pache, I'll be done with it. Don't worry about it.
So Bieber, by the way, very good against this team in the past. The only guy who's given him any trouble has been Benintendi. Only 110 at bats from the guys who are playing with about a 35% strikeout rate, hitting 195 off of them. Yeah, Bieber is the best pitcher to me. The problem is, in general, I always say if you think things are really close, go with the National League pitcher. It can also work both ways, by the way, because we almost had Inoa, by the way, even though he hit that grand slam. There was you could see in the announcement we were talking about it, they were considering pulling him for a pinch hitter in the middle of his shutout game in the 6th inning, and he'd only thrown 60-something pitches. So that's the downside of it, but they're not going to do that with Darvish anyway. But I do think those two, if you can get them in together, that's what you want to do. I really like Bieber in general, but maybe because of the ownership, we can talk about making a Buehler and something else lineup or something like that. Because I do think Buehler has the upside to beat these guys, especially with the matchup. All right.
I didn't get into all the details of it, so I was about to say I didn't sell you on it. I didn't get into all of it, but no interest in Brady Singer?
I'm so if I'm spending down, I actually think he's okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mention the other part. I actually like Cleveland a little better tonight. I'm not going to stack them, I don't think, but I think Jose Ramirez is a fantastic one-off, as we always say. And my favorite play in this game, and maybe one of my favorites in the slate, maybe tonight's version of Austin Meadows in terms of power, or in terms of putting up a huge game. I feel like Eddie Rosario matches up really well with Singer.
Cesar Hernandez hit a ball to the wall last night, by the way. Just thought I'd let you guys know that.
Hey, it's always nice when you can get it to the wall.
This Tampa game's a little confusing. I didn't realize there was pitching confusion here.
Every time Ohtani pitches it, we don't really know if he's going to pitch. It's like
they have him listed as the opposing starter for Tampa, but they don't have him as the actual starter if you click on the Angels. So it's
we'll see about that. We'll figure that part out later, I guess.
What would his price be? Do we even know?
Yeah, his price is let's see, I have him at.
He's under 8, right? I mean,
no, I don't have his price actually.
Right? I mean, I don't know what it is.
I don't know what the hell's happening. I'll get it. I mean, we'll
figure it out. It'll be right here. Hold on. No, I'll get rid of this. Yeah, he'd be. No, only if miss a hitter.
Interesting.
He's not on the list.
Okay. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. We'll see. I guess if they throw some other junk thing out there that we could talk about some of these Angels, the Rays bats, but again, it's always going to be the same thing for me. It's Brandon Lowe, Austin Meadows, and then third would be a Rosarena every day. That's just the way it is. Austin Meadows being number 1 every day and getting the price lowered after having him the night of all nights, I don't think is going to keep ownership off of him. I don't care who's pitching. Basically, I think Austin Meadows is going to be like the ultimate, like the automatic cash game play. I really do. He's 3,400. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right now the Tampa for me is tied as the top value stack on the board. Meadows, you mentioned. Lowe, you mentioned. Rosarena.
Wait, they're the top value. We don't even know who's pitching against them. That's really impressive stuff. Sheets. How'd you manage that one?
That's what I got. Maybe they were presuming Ohtani. I don't know. It doesn't say. It doesn't say who starters. But the other one, and the other two that you didn't mention, Kiermaier and Diaz, and then obviously, MVP and in waiting, Willie Dames. But yeah, I mean, these guys are going to be all, and depending on who pitches for the Angels, I think they'll get ownership again. But yeah, they're certainly in play to make these big pitchers work. That's for sure. Any hitting on the Angels or anything or no?
I don't love to pick on Yarbrough, but this is a team that matches up really well with lefties. I think Anthony Rendon is way too cheap, assuming that he's there. I think that Ohtani is too cheap. I think that Mike Trout is awesome. And then I think Justin Upton, again, too cheap with the power upside against lefties, but I don't think I would stack them. I think I'm just looking at those as individual bats.
So he didn't make it into my tier of pitchers I'm going to use, but you'll always have to consider Robbie Ray in GPPs. Chris Bassett is a little too expensive for me to put in that mix. But Robbie Ray, especially when you're going to get 4 strikeouts from Olsen, it's certainly a good floor. I think literally, I think Olsen is like probably an over under, legitimately 2.2 strikeouts, I think, in this game, and that's a lot. So I think Robbie Ray is probably in play. And before I go something stupid, like play too much Brady Singer, for example, maybe I'm just supposed to play a guy with more upside. Maybe I am supposed to play Robbie Ray here. So I'm gonna jam him. You know what I mean? He's not gonna project well for me or whatever it is, but I'm gonna jam him into some. I think. I don't want to mess with the Toronto bats right now, so I don't want to play Robbie Ray. Excuse me, I don't want to play Chris Bassett. And I did not quite get to either of the hitting in this game, though.
Yeah, I could be talked into some. It's just hard to afford them, but the Toronto bats I always have interest in a little bit, and usually with Oakland too. Is it weird that we're maybe not talking about stacking? Like if this game was played 2 weeks ago, would Oakland be one of the most popular stacks on the board with a 5.5 run total? Possibly. I think that maybe I agree. I think Robbie Ray is always I'm very familiar with him. He pitched for the Diamondbacks. I saw him against the Dodgers a million times. He's he's just dangerous enough to explode, but he also could. I actually think he is in my list of pitchers, but because of how many guys he can get, he can get that walk happy. He hasn't walked anybody's last 2 games, which I don't know if I've ever seen Robbie Ray pitch 2 games without walking anybody. But he walked 9 in his first 2 games.
You can certainly stack Oakland with confidence.
He also gets he gives up stolen bases and power, and guys like Laureano is probably the best play here. Laureano, for all that don't know, I think he still leads the league in stolen bases, which I don't think most people think about. And I don't usually like him as much against lefties because everybody plays him then. No one's going to play him today. Sean Murphy as a catching option I would have as a priority guy. Even with Matt Olson, the lefty, then you get down to Chapman. And Canna, of course. I actually think that an Oakland late night hammer stack is not the worst idea. And I know I've mentioned a lot of stacks, so I'll fine tune them in just a minute. But
I don't think anybody's going to probably play that because first of all, to play that, you have to pay down for pitching. You have to pay down for one pitcher at least. You're not going to be able to get away with 2 starts.
With Oakland, yes, you can.
With Oakland?
Yeah, you got Piscotty in the outfield at 2.8.
Well, if you want that,
Yeah, he's hit it. The last couple times he's had this happen, he's hit home runs.
Murphy 4,300. I like Lowry 4,300. Conha probably going to lead off right at 4,500.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Lowry, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, is Lowry?
I know he's had a couple games. He just doesn't have any real power, and I'm not going to pay 4,300 for a guy. Of course, he had a home run tonight off Robbie Ray.
Anybody can home run off of Robbie Ray, and anybody can strike out against Robbie Ray.
That's right. Yeah, so Oakland would definitely be a team that I would be looking at, but probably not going to make it a main stack. It's just something that I would consider for larger field GPPs.
Speaking of Robbie Ray, how did Mike Niner do last night?
He was fine, and then when he came out, they got shellacked.
Did he get 20?
I have no idea.
Okay. And how's the other Robbie Ray guy? How was I haven't seen Matt Boyd pitch in a while. Did he go on the injured list or something?
I don't know.
I just wonder if you've been following it. Okay.
I mean, I'm following everything. It's just that these are like really off the those are like so off the wall, but I can't think of them not playing. I don't know.
Just totally random questions.
Totally random ones that I wasn't ready for with baseball.
You weren't ready to provide the Matthew Boyd update? There it is. There it is. Dated default things. He'll start Sunday against the Twins. There it is.
There you go.
That's great. So that's an easy spot for him. Not a problem.
So just to go through like real quick and reiterate. So I do still like the Yankees and Astros. I checked it out. They have one of the most extreme pitchers umpires in that game, which doesn't make me love it as quite as much.
In the Yankees?
In the Yankee game. No extreme hitters that I've seen anywhere so far. We still have some that haven't been released yet. And then the Texas-Minnesota game, I'm sort of kind of getting into a little bit. I want to see who's pitching. That's one thing I'd like to know for Minnesota first. But both sides of that game I think are interesting. And then I'm going to have to decide between I think a small Milwaukee stack, like for value, just like maybe a 2 or 3 man. Atlanta, I think I might come a little bit off of today just because they're so expensive and it's hard to get them in. And there's other expensive bats that I like. Boston, sort of a similar thing, but I actually think Boston I would lean a little bit higher than Atlanta at the moment. And then you get into the Dodgers and Oakland. So I'm going to have to sort of fine tune this, but as of right now, I think the priority ones I circled are Yankees, Texas, and Minnesota. And then Yankees, I mean Yankees and Houston. And it is a little bit game stack because again, I'm trying to play into the weather a little bit. So that's partly why I'm talking a little more game stacky.
And if you had to identify your pitchers right now, how would you rank them?
My pitchers are, as of right now, Bieber, Darvish. I mean, this is really, really not creative, but Bieber, Darvish, Bueller as my spend ups, and then Fried potentially, Pineda if he pitches, Robbie Ray, and I'll throw a tiny bit of Brady Singer in there as I think it's reasonable play at his price for sure. Yeah,
that would be my one kind of hoodoo there would be Brady Singer. So Brady Singer and Minor, Bat Boyd, Robbie Ray. I like Robbie Ray. I'll just throw in there. But aside from that, kind of the chalk spend ups for me. And then I had some one-offs that I wanted to throw out there whenever you're done. Sorry. Oh, and one other thing before I leave this again, I am still going to do some homework on that guy from in the Texas game, because if they're going to throw out the lefty against Texas, and as much of a good stack as Texas is, like if this guy is actually going to say, hey, listen, see what you can do in 5 innings, I'm going to try him at 4K. So if he can get 75 pitches, we're in business. Yeah, well, that's like our conversation about the NBA. Like, if you give me 34 minutes at 3K, I'm in. No, but in the NBA, they won't say, like with pitchers, they often will say he'll throw 75 pitches tonight. Right. And by the way, they'll let him give up like 5 runs to get to the 70. They'll let them do whatever usually, especially for certain guys, depending on who they are. So, all right, so go do the one-offs. So the one-offs, I've got Verdugo, Garcia, both Garcias, Avisail and Adolis, Kyle Tucker, Joey Gallo, Nick Solak, Jose Ramirez, Tatis, Rosario, Meadows, and Upton. I think honestly, like looking through everything, I'm going to call my little home run of the day, which I never do, but I think Eddie Rosario hits a home run today. I'll give you like a 6 or 7 of the 2. Kevin Kiermaier, 2K. Boy, that was pissed me off. They moved him back in the order, and I took him out of my lineups yesterday. Oh, Meadows again. Avisail Garcia from Milwaukee, Vogelback from Milwaukee. Robles only 2,400 from Washington, and even though he's 5,800, Cunha. I mean, I love Acuna. I just want to remind everybody that the stolen base thing might not be as much. This guy is so good, though. Sheets, you know that ball he smoked in the first inning? Did you see this, or the second inning? He smoked a ball over the center field head and made a great catch on it. He just didn't quite get under it enough. And then the next at bat, with 2 strikes on him, he goes the opposite field. And he basically just like launches, gets way under it. And he's telling the guys in the dugout, and you can see it in the announcer talking about it. Like, look at him explaining how he had to elevate because last time he was pissed at himself because he didn't hit the ball high enough because it didn't go out of the stadium. It's just what a monster. You know what I mean? Who can decide that? It's just incredible. And then Gallo also, I forgot, 3,100. Yeah. All right. So we'll be back with you guys for baseball later at 6 Eastern. And we'll have some NBA and golf coming up for you shortly. basketball next?